but I'm excited that he's here and on camera for everybody. And welcome, PJ.
Oh yeah, on camera on a £13.99 webcam.
All right. 13 pound 99. All right. Well, it,
Only the
it makes you look
best.
it makes you look thinner. Uh, maybe we can get some NASA CGI to help me too. Uh, PJ, do you want to say anything about yourself so people know who you are?
Well, okay. I'm a globe skeptic more than what you call a flat earther. I strongly suspect that our reality and especially space isn't as it's presented to us. Shall I say how I got into it? Okay. Like many people, I got into things a lot of people would call conspiracies. The first event where the official narrative didn't really fit in for me was Princess Diana's death way back in 1997. Then, of course, loads of other things happened since then, including 9/11 and many other things. A lot of people dismiss things as conspiracy theories, but there's actually a lot of evidence if you look into some of them seriously. And I'm convinced that there's a huge amount of deception. To put a long story short, a few years ago, I noticed a few flat earth videos, including Eric DeBay. I watched them seriously, but I dismissed them at first. And when I looked into the official explanations and many things that were originally claimed, like the AE mapping model, simply doesn't work for many reasons. But it played on my mind for a few months, and I came back for more. Again, I was skeptical because of how it was so easily debunked, but then I realised that the AE map wasn't the only alternative to the globe model, so I looked into other alternatives. As time went on, including more recently with yourselves, I've seen a huge amount of evidence pushing the official globe model and debunking flat Earth, but I still believe that there's knowledge that's been hidden from us, including the nature of our reality, and also with the field of paranormal, which, despite so much evidence, just gets officially dismissed.
But I used the map that I know is the one that you favor, that comes from Awake Souls and Limitless, or Jason and Ronnie, as their first names are. um, and do you think that map is accurate?
I don't think it's 100% accurate, but it's probably the best that we've got at the moment.
What features of that map are important and make it work?
Well, for the whole map to work, we have to be living in a simulation. And before people say that's ridiculous, there is evidence. There's a lot of scientifically backed stuff which supports the simulation theory or hypothesis. And one of the things that map relies on is actually viewing what you actually see is what you see from where you are on that map, rather than you see things uniquely in your circle of sight.
Um, like the directions to things don't work.
Yeah, but it's where you stand, you're viewing uniquely. So wherever
Yeah.
you stand, you're seeing things uniquely from your position in the sky.
Okay.
It assumes that you're in a simulation.
Okay. So it seems to me like the simulation thing is like your get out of jail card free, or get out of jail free card. Like you get to claim anything you want, and if it doesn't match, you're just going to say simulation.
There is evidence, scientific evidence, that a simulation is real. It's supported by a lot of people, even Elon Musk, even Neil deGrasse Tyson, actually says it's a 50-50 chance.
Well, yeah. So saying for somebody to philosophize about it and say, well, maybe that's different than actual evidence. So I wouldn't accept any one person saying it could be. I would expect to see some sort of a confirmed experiment. Just send the DOI links to the confirmed experiments. Do you have those?
Give me a sec. There's the 2 slit experiment.
But why would the double slit experiment, which is well explained with quantum physics, why would that be a confirmation of a simulation?
Because the atoms act differently whether they're observed or not. It certainly doesn't add up with our sciences we've got at the moment, does it? How could atoms know they're being observed?
Wait, what do you mean? Do you mean observe? What do you mean when you say observed?
It leads to believe that we're in a simulation by the way that atoms aren't working as you'd expect them to work in normal physics. And also, if atoms can change the way they behave by whether you're observing them or not, then surely what you can see could change by whether you're observing them or not as well.
So you're saying that the experiment is the double slit experiment. So then we need kind of the hypothesis and the calculating the ramifications of it. Where are those so that we can go through that?
Right. I knew you'd get me into a corner somehow.
Well, that's science, right? That's the process of science.
Okay, I'll have better.
Okay.
S. James Gates Jr. is a professor of physics, a director of the Center for String and Particle Theory at the University of Maryland in College Park. Basically, he claims to have discovered computer code within string theory. And string theory is very difficult to explain.
String theory, I'll use the common term, but is basically a non-experimental position. It's all based on just thought experiments. And so how could something that I don't know of having ever been having any experimental confirmation backing it, how could somebody find error correcting code in it when it's strictly just people that have hypothesized and written about it?
Well, that's what he claims. He said, let me see. He says he quite unexpectedly found it. They're like error correcting block codes. He says, yeah, he says it's basically it's like code which removes errors in computer transmissions, but he found it in these
So it's a claim. So it's yet another claim, but no experimental confirmation.
There is a video.
Would you like me to put the paper up that he's talking about? I've got it here.
Is this the one you're talking about? Relating doubly even error correcting codes, graphs, and irreducible representations of n extended supersymmetry. Is that the one?
That's the one.
Okay. And you read that?
I watched the video.
Right. It's based on the existing string theory math, which has not been confirmed empirically.
But a lot of scientists are now supporting it. It's the same as
So
the Big Bang theory is not really proven either, is it?
If we're gonna go with a lot of scientists support it, then your position of the Earth maybe being flat doesn't get very far.
Pow.
Let's give it to you for a second. Let's accept that for a second. Error correcting codes in a formula doesn't actually conclude for us then simulation theory.
It makes it look like a computer simulation. You'd have to be.
And so you have, I mean, where does that, how does that come about then?
Well, error correcting code, if something is wrong, it knows it's wrong. So it would ask for it to be sent again. That's what error correcting code does. It's when you send data.
Oh dear, no. Oh my goodness, no. But yeah, layer 4 and 5 of the it's OSI, not ISO. OSI 7-layer salad is what actually, like in TCP, would request a retransmission of a failed packet. That is not error correcting code. That is the result of error checking, and maybe where error correction failed in a transmission.
I'll get you.
It doesn't tell us anything about the universe, because string theory doesn't actually have any direct connection to the universe at this point. We don't know. It may be right. It may be completely wrong. Nobody knows, because
and the Big Bang theory could be completely wrong as well.
Certainly.
Okay, good. Okay.
It doesn't. Neither of them change the shape of the Earth, being right or wrong.
Well, whether we're in a simulation is the difference between that map, whether it's got any chance of working or not. Because if it's not in a simulation, it can't work. Because
I agree. I completely agree. Where does quantum, where does any of this?
Well, it goes against normal physics.
Well, okay. Well, then where does it break physics?
Well, you can communicate. Well, it's not really communication. It can change the state of another atom at any distance instantly. It breaks the laws of physics as far as the speed of light for a start.
Well, send that along. Where's that?
Well, it happens instantaneously.
It's
any distance.
Atoms. All right. Well, who says that, and where is the? They
can share they can share information instantaneously over any distance. So surely that breaks the speed of light.
Actually, you can't. It's a common misconception that quantum entanglement can somehow transmit data faster than the speed of light, but it cannot. And the explanation for that, like you said earlier, is pretty complex, and I cannot present it myself, actually. We've got Alyssum. Alyssum is wondering, why is all navigation based on a globe? I'm sure you've heard that before. Do you know?
It appears like it's a globe. It acts like it's a globe. It doesn't mean it is a globe.
Two things from you, PJ. A working flat Earth map, and to explain atmospheric pressure gradients on a flat Earth.
Working map. Well, we need a lot of resources to actually do that. It's a case of you'd have to map everything from scratch.
Well,
and even then, if you're in a simulation.
Oh, no simulation. Until you've got evidence supporting simulation, we don't need to go to simulation.
Well, if you're a simulation, if you were in a simulation, you know what it's going to you're only seeing what you're seeing, aren't you? What the simulation's actually presenting to you.
Yeah, but there's no reason for us to think we're in a simulation. So empirically.
I could go on, but you probably won't. Well, it's not scientific.
Exactly. It's
I
not
could
something
talk
that's
I could talk
testable.
about consciousness and souls and going into alternative realities and stuff like that. Science
more
can't.
things that can't be confirmed empirically. So when flat earthers try to look for evidence, I find that the majority of the time they are just doing conclusion-based investigation. So when we look at the shape of the earth and we say, well, we can measure it, it gives us this measurement, and we can measure this and it gives us and we do all of these things, and it comes out every single time a certain way. But flat earthers don't want that way to be the answer, so they reject it every time and instead substitute in something else. It's typically it's one of a handful of different coping mechanisms to provide an excuse or a way out. For you, it is simulation theory, right? For Ronnie and James, it is simulation theory. So why does their map not work? Simulation theory. Why does when I ask somebody else that uses the AE map, why does that not work? They'll say, well, we can't map it. Well, people have mapped it. Why does these 15 experiments or measurements of rotation say that the earth is rotating? Oh, that's just words on paper. No, it's not. It's actually the result of an experiment or a measurement. So real work by real people, but they just hand wave it away. That's their excuse. So I'm going to ask you, PJ, don't do conclusion-driven investigation. Instead, let the evidence lead you to the correct ending and the correct understanding of it. Can we do that?
I understand what you're saying, but
okay.
But I do think there is a very good chance we are in a simulation. You can't prove you're not in a simulation. That's the other thing. You can't prove you're not.
Yeah, it's a completely non-scientific
but there's a lot of scientific people actually supporting it now.
Doesn't matter. Appeal to popularity. It is not part of science because we can't test it. Right? That is a foundational part of science, that you have to be able to actually test it. So if you can't test it, then it's something else. That doesn't mean that it's not true. I'll say that. Let me just say the definition of indoctrination is what?
I don't know.
It uncritically accepting something that you've been told. So if you are saying that it is the most accurate map, but you uncritically accepted it, you didn't check it, then you were indoctrinated. You have a religion that you have selected simulation as the required outcome of everything. It's not logical. It's not rational. So rather than pre-select that, let's let the observations and the evidence lead us to the conclusion. I see on Facebook a lot of the time memes, because the flat earthers on Facebook can't do anything but meme, basically. They're like, all your mathematical query formulas can't prove that the earth is a globe, which so many errors with that claim. But for the most part, not for the most part, for the complete part, the math that we use to explore the globe isn't just math. It's math based on empirical evidence and measurements. You can't do a measurement without math, except for the most basic, like kindergarten measurements. But string theory is just math. Connell Silverfur says, PJC, please drop the baseless claims, the appeals to authority, and biased, untestable theories on other untestable theories. Evidence is king. I've kind of been saying that, haven't I? Now Batman, just I'm Batman, but I don't know how Batman got a hold of my account, but Batman says for 10 pounds. Now, Batman is not British. He doesn't pay in pounds. Silly. Anyways, for 10 pounds says, you think the earth is flat? Dude, I've been to space in multiple realities. Not in a single one is the earth flat. In one, it had been turned into a cube, but we don't talk about Bizarro World. There you go. Batman's been into space, so flat earth debunked. Pilo 1408 for $5 says, so we could assume that a perfect simulation is possible and that someone would waste processing power to run one. Therefore, we live in a simulation. I don't know.
That's the thing. I mean, processing power wouldn't be wasted at things you're not looking at. That's where the double slit experiment comes from.
I don't think it actually follows, but and how do you know if we are in a simulation how much processing power they have?
Well, they've obviously got a lot.
Obviously, I mean, they've got like 5 or 6 Pentium Pros going.
Elon Musk is actually talking about talking about spending money trying to investigate ways to break out the simulation. I don't know how true it is, but that's what I looked up. It's apparently so.
I watched Elon Musk's rocket go to space yesterday.
You didn't watch it go to space. You watched it. You watched something last off. You didn't see it go to space.
Really?
I did. I watched the stream and I kind of saw it go to space.
How did it not go to space? Did it not get above 100 kilometers?
You don't know. You just watched it. You watched it go up, but you didn't see it go into space.
Yes, I did.
Where did it go then?
How did you? You weren't in space.
Did it go above 100 kilometers? If it went above 100 kilometers, it went to space. That's the definition of space.
Well, that's what they call space, maybe.
And not only did I watch it go to space, I watched it come back and land in front of me, and I heard and felt the sonic booms. Right here. I felt them in my chest. That's not luminaries. That's not just seeing something. I felt it. It was amazing. It was.
The most
knew
impressive
it was coming
hologram.
because I was. What's that?
The most impressive hologram.
The amount of to think that could have been faked is so ridiculous.
You don't know it went into space, though.
I don't. How do I not know that?
Well, you don't, because you can't see. You weren't able to see it when it actually went into space. You're only able to see it up to a certain altitude. You don't actually know what's up there or whether it actually really went into space.
So where did it go then?
You don't know. It could have gone anywhere.
Yeah, I didn't follow this second stage. I followed the first stage. The first stage was in space. It was more than 100 kilometers up.
Well, if you call more than 100 kilometers space.
I mean, everyone does.
And that is the definition of space. So yes, I call more than 100 kilometers up space. Because that's the freaking definition.
PJ, do you want to ask a question, Toon?
Yeah.
If space isn't real, why do all of the satellites in my village point exactly 33 and a half, it's very strange, 33 and a half degrees up into the sky in a direction where there is no towers at all, anywhere?
That is an interesting one, because I could say the same. There's something interesting about Starlink, because Starlink satellites are only ever observed in short chains. and they're supposed to be at an altitude of 314 miles away,
Yeah.
and yet those dishes are supposed to be in operation in some parts of the world now, and yet you can't always see those.
Yeah, because they don't have a
So-
full complement of, they don't have enough
Yeah.
to cover the network yet. They've only, got about 23% of their network up there.
Yeah,
So the
but they're
coverage
supposed
isn't
to
always
give a
there.
continuous
But
service.
satellite TV, everywhere in the world, every single dish points into space above the equator.
Yeah,
Like
but
on the
Starlink-
equator, dishes literally point straight up. And,
but-
where are they getting their signal from if there is no space with satellites?
don't know. It could be reflected off something, but you don't see long chains of them.
You only see.
I mean,
long
I've
chains
seen
of
long
them
chains
when
of
they're when they're initially deployed, because that's when they're in long chains, and then you only see them at certain times a day and in certain locations. So if unless PJ, unless you've actually done, somebody has done the actual math to say, well, if the satellites are orbiting the Earth, then we should see them here and we don't see them here, then I would love to see that. But so far you've just made claims about where you think you should see them or not see them, but it hasn't been based on analysis of their location.
480 miles away at a 45-degree angle.
Okay.
That's a long way to be able to see something of that size, even if it is reflecting, surely.
Yeah, but
I don't see the
your
problem with
eyes
that.
receive light. Even if just one photon of light hits your eyes, your brain can still technically, detect it. And no matter how far away, the inverse square law means that the amount of light that reaches your eye will never reach zero because it can never reduce to zero. So no matter how far away a source is, even if the thing is too small to see because of angular size, the light coming from it will still reach your eyes. But it doesn't answer the question of where the hell are every satellite TV dish in the world pointing to, because they all point to the same point in the sky. And if there was something there that it was reflecting off, then we could see that, or we could use radar to detect it or something. But there isn't. The only thing that they point at is the geostationary satellites that are in orbit 22,500 miles above the surface of the equator.
Say, but we don't know for definite.
We don't know for certain is just nuh-uh, or I don't believe it, or an appeal to incredulity.
There's supposed to be thousands of them.
Yep.
Thousands. I mean, I think there's only a handful
Yes.
every launch supposed to be released. I mean, that's
Yep.
like launching every day almost, just to keep them in service. Surely.
Okay.
Seems a bit far-fetched.
But people are actually getting internet service from them.
Is it from them though?
Well, what is it from otherwise? Do you have evidence? That's the problem. There's evidence. People have been to the launches where these satellites have gone up. The satellites have been seen in the sky after the launches. After the launches, the internet service has been available.
And the same guy.
If
and
it's not from the satellites, then what's it from?
And the same guy releases that silly Tesla car into space as well.
I don't know why you had to change a topic.
Yeah.
Let's stick on the same topic instead of deflecting, right?
Knows Elon Musk.
So great. He sent a car into space too. Awesome. But that doesn't affect anything about Starlink. That's the topic of Starlink right now. So what other than satellites in space would provide the internet service to the people that are actually really getting internet service?
We don't know, because we don't know what's really up there. I mean, it could be reflecting off something.
What would it be reflecting off of?
It could be something else up there that's
Do you have evidence for that?
We don't know.
It's very common that flat earthers will say ancient cultures thought the earth was flat, right? You've heard that. And I don't doubt that many ancient cultures thought that. When they started to explore and they started to do what is now called cartography and actually mapping it, they wound up with a map that's not a flat earth map in the end. So actually flat earthers have had longer time and more time in the past doing cartography than we have, yet have come up with no map that works. So it's not a very good excuse to say it would be expensive and it would be a lot of resources, because you guys, you flat earthers, were the first to start it. And they gave it up because it didn't work. Pilo 1408 says, Elon Musk says we live in a simulation. pjcnet believes him. Elon Musk says he sends things to space. pjcnet says he lies. There's a little inconsistency problem there, PJ.
There is. Perhaps he knows something we don't, and he's not sending things into space. Maybe that's why he's. Maybe that's why.
But how is he? But how is he getting internet access to everybody?
But don't know.
Okay, don't know. Back to don't know. It says from Bill McGuire, if this is a simulation, then the super chat isn't real, and you've been talking to yourself all night. Checkmate, pjcnet.
You can have nested simulations.
It's nested.
How much RAM is
this
this simulation got?
Simulations.
Right, hold on. If this is a simulation, right, is every single person on Earth being simulated, or is there just a few that are actually fully simulated with the rest just being NPCs?
That's a good question.
Because that would be an awful lot of processing
I think
power.
most people are, I think most, if not all, are genuine, as in they've got a soul, consciousness, individual consciousness.
Wait, how can they have
hold on
that
a
as a
second.
simulation?
Simulations
Because an NPC wouldn't have
souls.
Wow.
Well,
your body.
I just hit a 404 here. A simulation has a soul.
No, the soul isn't part. That is like your consciousness, and your body is what is allowing you to exist in this simulation. It's like your avatar.
Okay, so where is the soul? Is it in is it on an SSD? Is it in high-speed DRAM or like SRAM, so it's faster?
Your soul
like
doesn't
L3,
appear to. Soul
an L3
doesn't
cache?
seem to exist in this realm. Science can't pick it up, but it must exist, mustn't it?
As we can see, PJ is pretty invested in the simulation theory. During this edit, he said it 17 times. Of course, in the unedited version, he actually mentioned simulation theory 39 different times. So it's pretty safe to say that he uses simulation theory as MCToon put it, actually his get out of jail free card, which obviously doesn't work. And it actually brings to light one of the disconnects that a lot of flat earthers and other conspiracy theorists have, where they believe one thing and they believe another thing, even though those two things might be completely opposite of each other, such as the whole thing with simulation theory. He says that apparently Elon Musk is thinking about throwing money behind investigating whether or not we live in a simulation. However, if that's going to get done, who knows. But he also claims that space is fake and that rockets, we don't know where they go, if they even go to space. But who launches rockets actually pretty regularly? Elon Musk and SpaceX. So I don't know, PJ. One or the other. You can't have them both, unless I guess this is a simulation and none of us are real.